Hello everyone, in this video we're going to talk about the multiplication and division properties of inequality. So we've done previous videos on multiplying and dividing and the property of equality, which is when we have an equation. Well, in this video we just have inequalities, so that's why the name's a little bit different, but the process is essentially the same with one extra thing we have to think about. So the blue bullet point is essentially the same. When we multiply or divide each side of an inequality by the same positive number, the inequality remains true. So that's basically just telling us we can do the inverse operation in order to isolate our variable. Now, the second bullet point, it says when we multiply or divide each side of an inequality by the same negative number, the inequality symbol must be reversed for the inequality to remain true. So that's the big thing with multiplying and dividing with inequalities. If you multiply or divide by a negative number, you must reverse the inequality symbol in order for the inequality to remain true, okay? So we got 6 examples here. Number 1, we have x divided by 3 is less than 2. So to isolate the variable there, we can do the opposite of divide by 3, which would be multiply by 3. So we're going to multiply both sides by 3. That'll get rid of the divide by 3 on the left side. And that gives us x is less than 6. Okay, we multiplied by positive 3, so we can keep the sign as less than. All right, number 2. Negative 4 is greater than 2/3 x. So we're multiplying by 2/3 here. So what we can do is actually multiply by the reciprocal, right? Technically we could divide by 2/3, but we don't want to divide by a fraction. It gets a little tricky and messy. So instead of that, we can multiply by its reciprocal, which means we just flip the fraction. The numerator goes to the denominator and the denominator goes to the numerator. Because what we're trying to do is get 1x, right? So if I multiply 2 times 3, I get 6. 3 times 2, we get 6. So it ends up being 6/6, which is 1. So that's going to cancel out on the right side. Well, we also need to multiply the left side by 3/2. And when we do that, we're going to get negative 12. So 3 times negative 4, negative 12 divided by 2. So negative 12/2 is greater than x. And negative 12 divided by 2 would be negative 6. So negative 6 is greater than x. And I always like to write my variable on the left side, so let's flip that around. And let's say x is less than negative 6. Okay, so notice on number 2, we didn't flip the inequality symbol either because we multiplied by 3/2, not negative 3/2. Now, we ended up reflecting or basically switching everything in our answer at the very end because we wanted the variable on the left side, okay? Number 3, 4x is greater than or equal to 24. So we are multiplying by 4 here. So let's divide by 4 to cancel out that multiply by 4. So we get x is greater than or equal, and 24 divided by 4 would be 6. Okay, got a lot of 6's going on there. Unintentional, but in math sometimes it happens. All right, so on those first 3, we multiplied or divide by positives, right? Now let's multiply or divide by negatives. So for number 4, we have negative 8x is less than or equal to 64. So let's divide both sides by negative 8. And now we're going to get x. We divided by a negative. So instead of less than or equal, we need greater than or equal. And 64 divided by negative 8 would be negative 8. So our answer for number 4 would be x is greater than or equal to negative 8. All right, number 5. X divided by negative 6 is greater than 3. So now, much like number 1, instead of dividing by negative 6, let's multiply both sides by negative 6. So that'll cancel that, we get x, but now we got to switch from greater than to less than. And this would be negative 18. Okay, so because we multiplied by negative 6 there, we had to switch our inequality symbol. So now we have x is less than negative 18. And our last example, number 6, negative 4/5 x is less than or equal to negative 8. Let's multiply by the reciprocal, which would be negative 5/4. We're going to do that to both sides. So now these will cancel. We get x. Instead of less than or equal, we need to switch it. So greater than or equal. And we're doing a negative times a negative, so we know our answer is going to be positive here. 8 times 5 would be 40, and 40 divided by 4 would be 10. Okay, so those are our examples that we did, and that is how we can multiply or use the multiplication and division properties of inequality.